Welcome to The Bottom Line, a wrap of the business of the day. I'm Frances Hurd. So tonight we're looking at South Africa losing its shine to some extent. Today it was revealed that South Africa has lost its place as Africa's largest gold producer. Moving up to number one is Ghana. Now remember, South Africa as a nation initially built in some senses on gold, and the industry here, however, has been in decline for years. Even though I'm going to show you that South Africa has the second largest reserves of gold in the world. So here's a graph reproduced by Bloomberg from the US Geological Survey. South Africa last year, 2018, still sitting on 6,000 metric tons of gold. We were only surpassed by Australia with nearly 10,000. So there's a lot under the earth. But gold mining production has been going in one direction, and that is down. There was a drop last year, heavy contractions in January and February. At the same time, gold output jumped by 12% in Ghana last year. Now, there are a few things going on here. South Africa may be sitting on these great reserves of the glittery stuff, but they're very deep in the ground. And as the ore closer to the surface has been mined, the gold miners have had to dig deeper and deeper. That means more technical equipment and more costs. Some international agencies are also suggesting that this is about policy, that Ghana's laws and practices may be friendlier for investors. So AngloGold Ashanti, Gold Fields, both reducing their operations in South Africa, focusing on other countries, including Ghana, and Sibanye Gold is cutting jobs and diversifying into platinum. It may be considered that South Africa's industry is 130 years old or so. The Mineral Resources Minister, Gwede Mantashe, has said that gold is an old sector and naturally it will decline. Well, to discuss, we're joined now from our Seapoint Studio by Peter Major, Mining Director at Mergence Corporate Solutions. Peter, thank you for joining us. So there are two ways to look at this. A natural decline or something that we as South Africa have hastened. How do you see it?
Look, it's only natural if you want it to be natural. You know, Silicon Valley didn't just happen. People wanted it to happen. And we didn't become a giant gold producer just because we had the most gold. We wanted to extract that gold. And even when the gold price was low, government wanted to employ a lot of people that didn't have jobs. Government needed to raise dollars. And so government had a policy that was favorable, that attracted investment into our mines. And when you've got a lot of gold and you got favorable investment, we know what the result is. Billions of dollars of income, hundreds of thousands of jobs. Now, Ghana, they've been through all the cycles. They've been through the boom cycle, then they had a coup, and the government had negative policy. They chased away a lot of miners. Then they tried to get the miners to come back in the 90s with new policies, but then the government couldn't manage a lot of the environment in the 90s, and it got so bad that Anglos, after spending hundreds of millions of dollars at Obuasi, pulled out. And now, government realizes it's much better to have favorable policy that creates a lot of jobs and helps us exploit the mineral wealth that we've got. So can we do it? Yes, we've done it before. We can do it again. Yeah. Our mines are no deeper than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. But our policies, our environment, from Eskom to the Zama-Zamas to corruption, policy changes, uncertainty, the list goes on, but it's not a technical problem and it's not a resource problem.
So Gold Fields has been quoted saying Ghanaian authorities understand what makes for sound business practices. So you're suggesting that South Africa right now does not?
Oh, I think a lot of people will suggest that, and I think the statistics show that. People don't have to say anything. Look at our statistics. Half the world's gold. We've been producing less gold every year since 1988. We've employed less men every year since 1988. The rest of the world has produced more gold every year since 1988. It's hired more people every year since 1988. If you look at the graph of world production and us, we've gone in totally opposite directions since 1988.
But Peter, everybody says the same thing, that our gold mines are very deep and because of that, very expensive. Is that not true?
We're not operating them correctly. and we're not working as a team. When you're going underground, you work as a team. You need legislation and policy that is synonymous with going underground. You need certainty. You need overseas finance. You need economical, regular electricity. And you need a union that works alongside management to create jobs.
Yeah.
And like I said before, we were mining gold 3.5 kilometers deep 40, 50 years ago. The Americans are now mining silver and gold below 3 kilometers. The Australians are starting to go further underground. You can't just keep mining open pit. That puts men out of work, and it takes a lot of capital, and it's hugely destructive. And man's going to regret all these open pit mines. Underground is much better for the country, the employees, foreign exchange, the environment. There's so many advantages to underground compared to open pit.
So you're saying the gold miners right now are reluctant to go as deep as they should and kind of take those risks that they need to do that?
Francis, we can't even make money in shallow gold mines here. You know, whether a gold mine is 1,000 meters deep, we have abandoned 500 and 600 meter deep gold mines. We had brand new gold mines planned to mine. We've got a lot of gold less than 1,000 meters deep. People won't sink money into a gold mine here that's anything less than open pit because it involves labor, because it involves certainty. You know, when you put money in the ground, you can't move it. If it's an open pit mine, you can move your equipment tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's all about policy, regulation, and working together with the big players, the community, the government, and the unions, and ESCOM.
So there's a cost of going deeper and then the cost of labor. People are comparing South Africa to Ghana, the cost of strikes as well. Are we expensive in terms of labor?
We're terribly expensive because we are so inefficient. And we used to be the most efficient gold miner. We were like Texas Instruments, Hewlett-Packard. We almost put the rest of the world out of business in our industries. We got so efficient. When you do something over and over and over, you just get better, better, better at it. We were so efficient mining underground. We were NASA mission control. By 1980, South Africa was half the world's market cap in mining shares.
Just explain that, Peter.
We've altered our policy too much.
Yeah. A lot of people then say, oh, the miners themselves aren't efficient, but they also need the mining houses to create those conditions to allow them to be efficient.
We don't have mining houses anymore, barely, unfortunately. And they provided huge training. The mining houses provided huge finance, huge research and development. And the mining houses had the might to embark on 10-year projects that only showed a return after 10 years. We don't have anybody that can hardly go 2 years, 3 years before, if that mine doesn't start generating money. It takes huge resources to do that. Now, government has those huge resources, the unions have those huge resources, and ESCOM does. But if we can work alongside each other instead of butting heads, we can still do it, but we're leaving it till 11 o'clock at night. And you know, once the clock strikes midnight, we're all going to turn into pumpkins here. So we're cutting things close if we want to get it.
Do we as South Africa need gold mining? Should it be a priority? It doesn't sound like it is for government when your minerals resources minister is saying, it's in a natural decline.
I was really worried about that statement. I heard that live, in person, a couple times. It doesn't make sense. Whatever country you are, it makes sense to exploit your most abundant, easy to get resource. At least exploit it until everybody has a job and a decent house, a decent home, a decent life. So I think for us to pass up something that we were endowed so bountifully with, to pass up something we used to be so great at when we got 9 million people out of work. And don't forget, the gold mines had so many subsidiary industries dependent on them. And just a gold mine on its own, 30,000 people. They employed medical, electronics, computer, agriculture, forestry. You know, you almost want to just start a mine for all the industries that blossom around it.
All right, Peter Major, thank you very much. Our analyst tonight saying we could do better when it comes to gold mining, and maybe there are lessons here. South Africa also sitting on one of the biggest reserves of platinum in the world. We've heard government officials say, well, that'll never change, but we see that sitting on the reserves doesn't always mean that you are a leader when it comes to the production of that mineral.